Seahawks Super Bowl champions, and the Bengals are now looking forward to Super Bowl 61 in SoFi Stadium, Los Angeles, the site of the crime when Logan Wilson had a horrible call go against him that gifted the Los Angeles Rams a Super Bowl several years ago, but potentially some redemption in 2026 as the site of the Super Bowl is going to be at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. So let's kind of talk a little Cincinnati Bengals now over the course of the next 15 minutes or so. What needs to go their way in order to get to SoFi Stadium and put themselves in a position where they're competing for a Super Bowl once again? Paul Dehner Jr., friend of the show over at The Athletic. He always does this. 10 things that need to go right this offseason in order for the Bengals to get to that game. We're going to go through what Paul had to say, and I'll have my own spin, personal thoughts, and opinions on that as well. And the first option that Paul lists is take a big swing at edge. In other words, trade for Maxx Crosby. If you trade for Maxx Crosby, clearly you will not have the number 10 overall pick if you made a move like that, but best believe that you will be in a better position to win right now if you traded for Maxx Crosby. If you ask me, Stone, would you give up the 10th overall pick and then more than that in order to get Maxx Crosby? My answer would be yes. Maxx Crosby is a game changer. He is a game wrecker. He is a certified dog. And if I'm the Bengals, I do whatever I can to get him here in Cincinnati. Again, I've made this point a million times on the show. Hopefully you have multiple iterations of Cincinnati Bengals football with Joe Burrow at quarterback. And as we know, the Bengals have Joe Burrow. They have a chance to win a Super Bowl. But at some point, you're going to have, hopefully, so long as he stays here, Joe Burrow without a prime T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Well, let's do everything we can to win with prime T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. A move as far as acquiring Maxx Crosby via trade certainly would signify that. Now, is Cincinnati going to do that? No. We know this. Would they create some crazy swing, crazy aggressive swing in order to land a stud player? Probably not, but that doesn't mean it can't factor into this plan here because I agree with Paul Dehner Jr. Bengals, you're on your way at that point if you trade for Maxx Crosby. But then the second thing Paul talks about is essentially attack that position responsibly. Right? You don't want to do a big swing for a huge superstar guy like that, and that's fine. Well, you still have to address it, right? And that still means you have to bring in a guy in free agency. Draymond Jones is a guy that we've discussed a lot from Baltimore. There's a guy with the Falcons, too, as well, which side tangent. I've been telling everybody, right? Shamar Stewart was the right pick. We didn't want James Pierce. We wanted Shamar Stewart. That was crazy story that came out with James Pierce Jr., but I digress. You got to attack that position responsibly. Get a middle-of-the-line free agent. Get ready to allocate a draft resource towards that position, right? I like Cedric Johnson a lot. I think he's a part of the future. I think he's a part of the solution at that position. You can't just sit here and say, oh, Myles Murphy, he's going to take another step. Shamar Stewart, he's going to be ready to go. Oh, we got Cedric Johnson here. And we'll kind of draft the guy and go from there. No, you have to address that position with new bodies and be ready to go come the draft and come week 1 next season. Need a leader at linebacker, right? That's what Paul says. To me, I would just say rehaul the room and bring in a leader at linebacker. I got no interest in Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter playing serious snaps for this team next year. Is Demetrius Knight a guy that's like, okay, you can deal with him out there? Maybe. I don't think Barrett Carter is. So my solution would be rehaul linebacker, but you have to bring in a veteran. And the Bengals, for whatever reason, hate bringing in veterans, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Well, guess what? What you've done the past few years hasn't worked. You need to bring in a guy. There's a bunch of old dudes that are out there that you can sign to a one-year deal, maybe $8-9 million, which is a little bit pricey. Demario Davis is a name. He's 37 years of age, played for the Saints his whole career, has been a heck of a player, has a tie with the position coach, Mike Hodges, here in Cincinnati. That could be an interesting fit. He's got 1, 2, maybe 3 years left, maybe 1 or 2. I get he's been a Saint forever. You think you're winning a Super Bowl with Tyler Shuck this coming year? Keep dreaming. You can win one here with Joe Burrow. There's some intrigue there. Bobby Wagner, to me, is washed. That's a name people throw out there. Lloyd, the linebacker, he's interesting. Anzalone from Detroit, right? Again, you don't need to commit to these guys. Oh, here's a 4-year deal. No, here's a 3-year deal. No, sign these 1-year deals with these veteran players that you know have leadership qualities. Bring them in here to help along the young guys and hopefully just play more than the young guys and be a part of winning in the short term. I don't think that's a problem. I think you're allowed to do that. Do you want to draft and develop as kind of your foundational principle of your team and core value of your team? Yes, right? You can't just build a team in free agency and expect to win a championship. That doesn't mean you can't plug and play at spots in which you need, right? Old linebacker, could use one here in Cincinnati. Oh, he knows how to tackle? Great. Oh, he's got some actual eye discipline and knows how to, maintain angles out there when he's getting ready to tackle somebody, and knows that he should shift the guy towards his teammate rather than shift the guy towards a bunch of green grass. Okay, let's bring him in, right? Something the linebackers obviously have struggled immensely with in Cincinnati. But I want a leader, right? Duke Tobin was talking about that. That was kind of alarming to me. It's like, you assembled this team. You didn't put any leaders out there on defense. I want a leader. I want a guy that can tackle, right? It should be very easy to address. Paul says leadership at linebacker. True, but I'd also basically just rehaul the room there as well. Stop devaluing safety. This one makes us frustrated because we've been saying it for the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, for whatever reason, they're just like, safety. Screw it. I don't get it. I do not get it. They showed us that with how they handled the Jessie Bates situation. This team, we're all frustrated because Jessie was such a great player. There's no reason that they should be that bad at that spot since losing Jessie. Maybe not as good at that spot, but, why are they so bad? Because they don't care. Right? Oh, we'll sign Nick Scott. We'll sign Geno Stone to a 2-year deal. He'll stink, and we'll know it 3 weeks in, but we'll stick with him for 2 years. Right? I don't get it. Caleb Downs is the name I've said multiple times. You don't want to take a safety in the first round. He better be off the board if you don't take him, number one. There's other safeties later in the draft that you can get. There's free agents out there. Address the room. For the love of goodness, address the room and value the position, right? I get it's not left tackle. I get it's not quarterback. But when you go out there at any position in the NFL and absolutely stink, it's going to be an issue. Dalton Risner, re-sign him, right? Again, there's a lot of interior offensive linemen in this free agent class. I don't think his value is going to be very high as far as how much money he's going to get in a contract. He was on his couch when you signed him right before the Cleveland game last year. So, just get out ahead of this. Do it now, right? You can do it. There's no time frame on this. He's on your team technically, right? So you can do it now. You got first dibs in free agency. You don't need to wait for free agency in order to do this, right? Give him a 1-year deal. You don't have to commit to him beyond that. He said he wants to be here. I don't think he's going to try to squeeze you for every single penny. Go out there, get him, and move on. And move on from there. I think when you finally found something there along the offensive line, don't mess with it. Do not mess with it. Bring him back. Tag and trade. Trey Hendrickson. We've done videos and segments on this in the past. Why Cincinnati should do this. It allows you to get compensation for him in 2026. If you let him walk and be a free agent, sign somewhere else, you're hoping for a compensatory pick in 2027, and it also potentially hinders how active you can be in free agency this cycle. If you tag and trade him, you obviously get a 2026 draft pick. And a lot of people out there think they could get a third rounder. I think at worst case a fourth rounder. But when you hear around the league and you look around the league, everybody says the best free agent on the market, regardless of position, right, is Trey Hendrickson. If you want to talk position specific, that's fine. He clearly is the best edge rusher on the market as well. It would be shocking if somebody didn't want to give up a third or fourth round pick in order to land him and then give him the deal that he's looking for, right? It seems like somebody would do that. Now, granted, there's a reason why these things don't happen all the time, each and every year, multiple times a year. Tag and trades in the NFL, especially this day and age, I would not use the word common when I'm describing them. And when you factor into the situation that the Cincinnati Bengals are the decision makers here in this situation, there's a reason why not many of us are optimistic that they'll do this, right? But to get a free pick in the 2026 draft, yes, do it. He's not coming back. Try to get something for him this year. 2027 pick, I'm not worried about 2027. I would trade away every 2027 pick if it meant the Bengals were going to the Super Bowl in 2026, right? And I think a lot of us feel the same way as well. Value the backup quarterback position, right? We saw how important that is this year. Now, you could argue that, well, they never devalued it, right? I think there was people out there. I mean, Jake Browning was competing with, who was it that year? I see his face. Trevor Siemian. Remember when those two were competing in preseason and Jake Browning won out and we're like, okay, like, but both these guys really aren't good. Like, we're in deep trouble if Burrow goes down. Well, then what, in 23 or whenever it was, Burrow goes down, Browning goes out, plays well. So I think we all were like, yeah, it's fine, right? You know, if Burrow's out, we're not going to win big. But, like, can Browning hang in there? I think the majority of us were like, it's not the end of the world. We don't feel great, but it's like he's something, right? It's not like putting me or you out there. Well, it turned out it was like putting me and you out there this year with Jake Browning. And you get Joe Flacco, and it was a little bit too late, right? It was awesome. It was great. Loved it. It saved the season from an entertainment perspective, because I think if Jake Browning had to play one more game, we all would have lost our minds. But getting Joe Flacco out there for the Green Bay game and beyond that, he played great. That was great to see. But there's probably better chance than not that Joe Flacco is at least going to be brought in somewhere to be in a competition to start. If not, be given the job as the bridge guy. Not happening here in Cincinnati. He would be the backup here. So I would be surprised if he was back. But if he's in a situation where nobody wants him to be the starter or be in a competition, bring him back and pay him top-of-the-line backup money. Again, I've said this multiple times. If we had Flacco on this team when Burrow went down against Jacksonville, maybe Sam Darnold's not hoisting the trophy last night. That's all I'm going to say as it relates to that. But value the position. You can't. Jake Browning's done. We know this. But there will be other, quote-unquote, high-caliber backups that you can get. I think you should spend and get one if you lose Flacco, right? Not, we lose Joe Flacco. Let's take some guy in the 5th round and he'll be Joe Burrow's backup. No. Proven guy that's played a ton of football, Case Keenum-esque, right? Like, that would be like, okay, bring him in, right? Somebody along those lines that's played football, that can play football, is a veteran guy. Give him some extra cash to understand that you have that position locked up should something go haywire for Joe Burrow and as it relates to him and his health. Set up, is what Paul says. Set up, put yourself in a position where you can draft the best player available at 10. In Paul's eyes, he doesn't think the Bengals did that because they didn't address linebacker and edge. Interesting theory. I'm not quite sure. Paul knows more than you and me. He's closer to the team. But to me, the way I look at it is just draft the best player, right? That's kind of where I'm at. Did the Bengals feel like they had to take an edge there? Like, I don't get why they would feel that way, right? Again, did they feel like they had to take 2 linebackers because they didn't address it in free agency, but they had Logan Wilson still in the team, and he was a captain? Like, I don't know. That to me was Duke Tobin selling or Al Golden banging the table for both those guys. But anyway, just take the best. Just take the best player at 10, right? The best defensive player, sorry. So not a receiver or a tackle. They tackle in the 2nd or 3rd round is something you should consider. But for the most part, take the best defensive player available, i.e. Caleb Downs, right? If Bain or Bailey are there, fine. But just take the best player available at 10, right? You should have done it last year. You didn't. You took Shamar Stewart, a guy that hadn't done anything. I want a guy that has a track record, that's played in some big-time games, that has had success throughout a sustained period, throughout his career, that you can bank on to be a good player and a starter for you immediately. Doesn't have to be a Hall of Famer, right? Doesn't have to be, this guy's ceiling is absurd. No, just a guy that knows how to play football and clearly is going to be able to start in the National Football League. You're picking 10th. You can find one of those guys that fits that description. And Paul also says, leave with 3 defenders in the top 110. In other words, through your first 4 picks, take 3 defenders. And I agree. Right, I think you should allocate a spot in there to potentially draft Orlando Brown Jr.'s replacement. Don't force it, but if there's a guy that you like in there in the 2nd or 3rd or 4th round that you think could potentially be a tackle for the future for you, take him, right? Again, don't force it, but in your first 4 picks, 3 of them got to be defenders, right? And if you execute the tag and trade, you got another one in the mix. They need to be defenders, right? It's pretty clear. Right, I think we all know that. I think we all understand that, and I don't think that's breaking news to any of you out there. 2 more. Still protect Joe Burrow. Do think that's very important, obviously. It's the defense, fix the defense, need to fix the defense. That's where we're at for Cincinnati, rightfully so. But also, let's make sure we're protecting number 9 there as well. And that kind of factors into what I just said. Understanding, okay, let's address that backup spot at tackle. Understand that, Mims and OBJ made it through the whole year healthy. If they didn't, I think we'd have some serious issues because that would mean Cody Ford was out there playing football for this team as a starter. That would be a problem. All right, so understand that you're probably not going to have as much health as you did along your offensive line. Plan for it by either bringing in a backup in free agency or drafting players for the future. So still address the offensive line. I think we're all excited about where the offensive line is going, but understand this. When Joe Burrow went down, the first Cleveland game, those boys didn't know what was going on, right? They weren't playing well that game. And then the first couple series against Jacksonville, right before he got hurt, they didn't know what was going on then either. So when you look big picture, yeah, they had a great year. And when Joe Burrow came back, they were great. But it got off to a very rocky start. And Joe Burrow, of course, got hurt immediately in the second game. So that's a position that you still need to address and keep an eye on. I get we need to fix the defense, but you got to at least sustain what you had there on the offensive line and plan for some adversity to strike as it relates to health. Lastly, Paul says extend Dax and DJ. I've been on this now for about a week. I think Dax is the priority here to massage some of that cap hit over the course of a couple more years. I think that is very, very important to do because it opens up some more space for you to be aggressive in free agency now and potentially extend DJ Turner. Right? DJ Turner is on his rookie deal, and Dax Hill's cap hit is huge, right? Because the fifth-year option, it's just 1 year, boom, right now. Well, if you extend him, you can move that out over a course of several years, bring his number down, extend DJ Hill, his number comes up. DJ Turner, his number goes up. And that makes sense. But I think extending DJ and not Dax, that would make me scratch my head. And I get he was one of the best corners in football last year. I do. But let's see it again because I know what he did the first 2 years as well, and it wasn't good. And I'm talking about DJ Turner. So to me, it's Dax and Chase Brown. Paul says, it's running back. We're good there on offense. Don't need to force the issue there. I would like to reward my best players. Chase Brown's had a heck of a lot more consistency than DJ Turner, right? Number one. And number two, he's been a huge focal point of your offense. You've had a lot of success on offense. You haven't had any success on defense. So, and his number's going to get – if you don't extend Chase Brown, I think you might lose him because he's going to get some huge contract, assuming he stays healthy this next year for the following free agent cycle, and you might not even be in the running for that. So, I would definitely consider an extension for Chase Brown, and I personally would do it. And then I would do Dax. And then if you can handle all of it, which I know is a lot for the Cincinnati Bengals, we sure they can do this? Can they extend 3 guys this offseason? I don't know. But that's what I would do in that order, if I'm being completely honest. But that's what Dehner says as far as what he would do to get the Bengals back to the Super Bowl. SoFi Stadium, L.A., Super Bowl 61. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But, again, everything that's happened so far this offseason going in the Bengals' favor, right? Harbaugh out, Minter in, great. Tomlin out, McCarthy in, great. Stefanski out, Monken in, great. So everything is lining up for a positive year for Cincinnati. But, the NFL year is over. How about that? Seattle Seahawks, world champions.